I used to worry about what people thought about me. Now I couldn't care less, as you can plainly see. They said I was stupid. They said I was strange. Well, maybe I am, but I'll never change. The world may not like me, but that's okay. There's only one thing I've got to say. Fuck everybody.
Hey everybody, Joe Popp from the Popp Rock Shop, and today on the Poppcast we have Michael Ray FitzGerald, Jacksonville treasure, musician, writer, all kinds of stuff, and we're going to talk to Mike about a lot of different things today. Mike, I've known you for many, many years, and let's start from the beginning. Where were you born, and what year?
I ain't telling.
Okay, you don't have to tell. If you're avoiding the IRS, we appreciate that.
I was born in Boston, Massachusetts in the early 50s, and I lived in the projects. My father was in the Navy, but he was an enlisted man, and we were very, very poor, and we didn't even have a car.
Wow.
Of course, you didn't really need a car in Roxbury. And we lived in the same project that Bobby Brown lived in.
Wow.
I'm about 10 years older than he is. Of course, it was segregated in Boston. In the 50s.
Sure.
There was a black project and there was a white project next to each other. So it was a rough part of town, man.
And when did you start in music? What was your first instrument?
I started on the drums. I didn't have a set of drums, but would play on my my thighs and the floor.
There you go.
And I would go out and watch other drummers play drums, and I learned by watching other drummers in local bands in Lemoore, California. My father was in the Navy, as I said, and he was stationed in Lemoore. We were there for 8 years, from age 8 to about 15, 7, 8 years, something like that. And I would watch other drummers play, and I learned how to play from watching other drummers, and then I would practice to Beatles records and learn Ringo licks on my bed.
And then when did you start playing the guitar? That was the instrument I saw you when you were performing live.
Right after I thought I was going to, I attempted to play the drums. And first song I ever learned on guitar was, I had an electric guitar. My father brought me one home from Okinawa.
Oh, wow.
Cheap Japanese thing, a Splendor with round wound strings. No, flat wound strings.
Yeah, the ribbon wound?
It was horrible. It was horrendous, and the strings were like a quarter of an inch off the neck, and you couldn't play it. I don't know why people want to start beginners out on the hardest guitars there are to play. Doesn't make any sense, does it?
We've talked about that a lot on the show. Like, it's discouraging because you're like, this is too hard.
And your fingers are bleeding.
Yeah, and if you had a proper instrument, you'd be able to
make some progress.
Yeah. So what year? How old were you when you got the guitar?
I guess I was about 12. It was the first song I learned was the Beach Boys version of Monster Mash. It was a piano figure transposed to a guitar. Dun, 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 dun. Just 5 and 6. Uh-huh. And I didn't even know how to tune the guitar. I just made up my own tuning.
Wow.
I didn't know a damn thing about guitar. Luckily, there was a kid in the neighborhood everybody played guitars now in my neighborhood. Everybody.
This is in California.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the surfing craze, and the Beach Boys, and the Beatles were out already. Nobody wanted to learn Beatles songs for some reason. I never could figure out why that was.
Well, they're great songs. You'd think people would want to learn them.
Nobody wanted to learn. They wanted to learn the Ventures, and they wanted to learn the Shantays and the guitar stuff. And and I guess the other stuff was easier than the Beatles stuff. I don't know, but so there was this guy in my neighborhood. Like I said, all the boys play guitars. For girls, it was Barbie. Mm-hmm. For boys, it was electric guitars.
Really?
Yeah. And there was a kid in my neighborhood. He was better than any of us, named Rick Malco. And he was so good, and we used to just all watch, go over his house, and he would play for us, and we'd cop licks from him.
Yeah. That's how we all learned kind of back then.
Yeah. There was one guy. He was the king of them all.
And you remember his name.
Yeah. Well, how could I forget?
Years later.
Yeah, 55, maybe 60 years later.
Yeah. Wow.
58 years, yeah. How could it was beyond me how anybody could play lead guitar. I was having a hard time playing rhythm, and I couldn't even get the concept of playing lead. So I moved to Jacksonville in '68, and I talked my father into buying me a good guitar, a Gibson SG Standard, like
Nice.
Eric Clapton had. Really wanted a Les Paul, but it was out of our price range. So my father took me to Paulus Music downtown, and I bought a SG Standard from Freddie.
I mean, the weight probably was better for you than the Les Paul on the SG as a kid,
I hadn't thought about it, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah, the Les Paul may have discouraged you.
Oh, man, those things are heavy. It would have
Still
given me a
heavy.
backache.
Yeah. So talk about your first band. Let's fast forward a little bit to your first band of merit where you felt like, I'm doing something now.
Well, my actual first band was a local band in Orange Park. That wasn't my band. It was formed by a guy named Mike Bisbee, and it was called The Hippies. Mm-hmm. It was terrible. We went to a gig unrehearsed. I knew one song. I don't know how I got through a night. It was just an abortion, and that was the one and only gig.
With the Hippies.
It was a teen club on NAS Jacksonville.
All right.
On the base.
And your dad was still in the Navy at this time?
Yeah, he was a chief by that point.
All right.
And let me see. I wasn't a very good guitar player, so I couldn't get in a band. There were so many good guitar players. It was ridiculous.
In this town, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, and if you come to Jacksonville with a guitar in your hand, you better know how to play that thing.
Yep.
And I couldn't get in a band. I wasn't good enough. I auditioned for Sweet Rooster, which was Jeff Carlisi's group.
From Skinnerd.
From 38.
38 Special, right, okay.
But it was also Donnie Van Zandt was in that band. And Kevin Elson, he's a major producer, went on to become a major sound guy and producer. And I auditioned for them over at Kevin's house, but, first of all, I wasn't very good. And secondly, I didn't like the material anyway. Mm-hmm. So, I have a hard time learning shit I don't want to learn.
Yeah.
That I don't like.
So you struck out on your own and...
Yeah, I had to. The only way I could get hired was just to form my own band and hire myself. Mm-hmm. So I did.
Great.
I'm sure you know people like that.
Oh, me? I couldn't get in any bands either. I was a terrible guitarist.
Yeah, I wasn't too good. I mean,
I got better, but
Yeah, me too.
I'm not like Shanholtz or one of these dudes.
Oh, no.
I'm never going to be that. I'm more of a songwriter, which I think you're in that same field too.
Yeah, I'm actually my strongest point is as an arranger. I can put together an arrangement of anybody's songs. Mm-hmm. Good ones too, but I wasn't good enough to get a gig in a band. So I wound up forming my own band and hired myself.
And was that Mike Angelo and the Idols, or was that
It was called it was called the Meteors.
Okay.
After the Comets.
Ah, like Bill Haley's
Yeah,
Comets? Okay.
yeah. So we named it the Meteors. This is when the 50s revival thing was going on in the early to mid 70s, like 73.
Right. Happy Days was
74.
out.
Exactly.
Laverne and Shirley, and there was all this.
We even had a sax player.
Wow.
And we picked up a few gigs here and there. That group was kind of short-lived. Oh no, I had an earlier band with Jesse Gay called Joint Effort, and we were totally original, no cover songs, just all originals. And of course, we couldn't get a gig to save our lives.
Right.
We got one gig. Don Finney, the saxophone player who lived right across the street from Jesse, he's dead now, but he was a very good sax player. He wandered by Jesse's house and asked us to be his pickup band for a gig he had booked at Orange Park High School, and we only knew like 7 or 8 songs, and the crowd was bitching and ragging us out. Play something we know. Play something we've heard. It was a melee. The cops were running around on stage chasing. David Klein, a school kid, was running around on stage with shirtless, doing a faux strip tease, and the cops were chasing him around. And I shot the cops a finger in front of the audience, and then I got carried to jail.
Wow. How old were you then? 17?
16.
18? Wow.
15 or 16. 16.
Your first original music gig, you got taken to jail.
Got arrested.
That's a good story, though. That's how you should start.
Yeah, you're right. We can edit all that other shit out.
Yeah. So let's go to, again, your first band of where you felt like, was it Mike Angelo where you felt like you were really doing something, making waves? Because there was a Southern rock thing here, and I know you participated some in that, but you also had an original band that was more in the, I don't know, independent rock realm?
I wasn't really into Southern rock. I mean, I liked some of it. I liked Delbert McClinton. I didn't like Leonard Skinner. Still don't like him. Tried to like him.
You wrote a book about the whole Southern rock thing.
Yeah. I tried to like him, but I couldn't get past Ronnie Van Zant's voice.
Really?
Yeah. And he wrote good songs, but I knew them when they were a young, up-and-coming, struggling band, when they were 1%, and they were god-awful. Mm-hmm. Couldn't play in time, couldn't tune their guitars, couldn't play in tune. Ronnie couldn't sing in tune. They were just god-awful. So I never could accept, that they finally worked hard and turned themselves into a decent band. And they were a decent band because, they could hold their own with the Rolling Stones.
Mm-hmm. They were number 2 concert draw, I think, before the plane went down.
They would open
right?
for the Stones, and they would get encores.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, they turned into a good band, but I just couldn't get past Van Zant's voice. So, I wasn't really into Southern rock. I liked the Rossin and Collins band because I think Dale Krantz is a monster singer. Mm-hmm. But
your stuff had like a soul vibe to it, kind of.
Yeah, it did.
From what I remember.
Yeah, Anthony D. Curtis called it punk soul.
That would be a great description because it was almost like, I don't want to call it new wave, but you kind of fit into the new wave mold.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Because it didn't fit anywhere else, but your voice has this very soulful quality, and I thought that was a really original take on the whole thing.
Thanks. I deliberately set out to create a hybrid of Rick James and Elvis Costello.
That was your specifically.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. It's brilliant.
It worked. People dug it.
Yeah.
And Dan McDonald voted us, Mike Angelo and the Idols, he voted us the top entertainers in the city of Jacksonville in '87. Nominated us, not voted us. He was one guy, but he named us the top entertainers in the city of Jacksonville.
And I know you had label interest, and did you release anything on a label?
We got signed to a label called Rainbow Collection, which is headed by Herb Gart, who he was the executive producer for Janis Ian and for Don McLean and manager for several other acts. Also, he's executive producer for Buffy St. Marie. And he shopped us around, and he came close to getting us a deal with Polydor, I think, but it never materialized, unfortunately. But we came pretty close.
Did you guys tour as Mike Angelo and the Idols?
We played New York a few times.
Okay.
CBGB's we played New York at the Peppermint Lounge, not the original Peppermint Lounge, but it reopened in the 70s.
Okay.
Or the 80s rather.
And then you had some success writing for other people too, and this
little bit
might be funny, but the Roddy Piper song "Fuck Everybody" that you wrote in the early '80s, I guess, and it got on this wrestling album, and it kind of took off, right?
Yeah, it sold about 400,000 units. It was enough to make a down payment on a house
for you.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And do you feel like, was that your most financial success?
Oh yeah, it's my only financial success.
Really?
Yeah.
And to speak a little bit about this, kind of melding into where we got to know each other, we had this little group that you and Arvid, I think, started called the Creative Music Coalition.
And Craig Spurko.
And Spurko, right? Mm-hmm. And I kind of joined in after, but what was were you trying to bring attention to Jacksonville in a way that wasn't about Southern rock, or you just wanted to get more gigs, or what was the thrust?
No, it was
of
what
that?
you just said. I was trying to bring A&R guys to Jacksonville. I didn't care if they signed my band. I was available if somebody was interested, but I just wanted somebody else to get signed out of Jacksonville because it had been a while.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't think Derek Trucks was even, wasn't
even
even
then,
9 years
right?
old. Yeah. And Limp Bizkit wasn't even out at that time.
Right. There was some success later, like with Rain Sanction and some things like that.
I was trying to bring labels back to Jacksonville. I knew it could be done because it had been done. Mm-hmm. And We did. We brought some label people to town, but nobody got signed, unfortunately.
Yeah. And did you ever have any idea to relocate somewhere, like to a more populated or a more place that would appreciate original music better?
I tried. Yeah, I tried that. I tried Los Angeles in '73. Oh my God, I hated it so bad.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to get out of there. And I tried Orlando, and it was just so fake. And I tried Miami, and I tried Atlanta. I didn't last but a month or so in Orlando or Miami, but even a week. But I lasted about 6 months in Atlanta, but I had to get out of there. There was too much cocaine.
And you feel like this is your home now?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
As far as like
sure.
where you want to live, and let's talk about your studio at the beach.
Jacksonville's a great place to live.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to visit here.
Yeah. There's not much to do if you visit, but yeah, I was living in New York. I could never afford to build this studio if I was stayed in New York. So you have opportunity.
And the
here.
weather's unbelievable.
I'm not crazy about the heat, but I like this time of year.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Let's talk about, I remember you brought me into your studio one time when we were in the Coalition, and it was funny. I think you had a clapper, like you turned the lights on or with a clapper.
I would throw my keys on the counter.
Something,
and the lights
yeah,
would come
to
on.
turn everything
Yeah.
on. And but you ran a studio for a few years. And,
2 of them.
And that was, you were trying to get that same kind of thing, get some bands launched out of this area?
Yeah, I had 2 studios. I had one in a 2-story bowling alley, or rather skating rink, right on the ocean front in Jacksonville Beach. I had 10,000 square feet of solid maple flooring, and it sounded unbelievable.
Drums probably
Oh, man.
sounded brilliant there.
Sounded.
Was that the old rehearsal room for Stevie Stiletto and the Beggarweeds and all that? It was a
Yes.
roller rink, right?
Yes,
Yeah, I think
yes.
some bands used to practice up there.
Yes, I think I had it before they did.
Before they came in,
Yeah.
okay.
Because they built all those stalls and everything in there.
Ah, okay,
So
that was
we
after
didn't have
you.
it. Yeah, so it was after us. That was $400 a month, man, on the ocean.
That's insane. I
Yeah.
heard it just, Einstein sold for $12 million or something, that little corner
Really?
place there. Yeah.
Whoa.
So
It was
Should've
owned
bought
by
it.
it was owned by Martin G. Williams. It was a great guy, and he gave me a great deal. He was his sweetheart. I was up there on the second floor for about a couple of years. We had some grand parties in there too, man.
Mm-hmm.
Then I lost the lease because he sold the building, and so a few years later. Well, then I got involved in a studio with Ron Perry in Mandarin, but it was his studio. But I owned a lot of the equipment in the studio, so he let me use all the downtime whenever I wanted. So I could bring anybody I wanted in there anytime and record for free.
And were you recording on analog back then, of course?
Yes, 1-inch 16-track Tascam.
Right, MS-16.
And I had a 1-inch 8-track Tascam. So, and Ron bought it from John Kurtzweg. Mm-hmm. You remember John?
I do, yeah.
He had a studio in Mandarin called Allen Audio. I did quite a bit of recording in there, not just myself, but other groups as well. And I like to record other groups. You know, I consider myself a strong arranger, so I like to get involved in creating song structures, you know, and arrangements and stuff. And if they'll let me do that. And I do have a pretty large list of production clients.
Well, and I see you also have a long list of writing songs for other people. So you've done a lot of that, too. And was Mike Angelo sort of your last go at the performing, or did you have other bands after that you felt were close to getting signed?
Yeah, I started another group called Chain of Fools.
Oh, that's right. I remember Chain of Fools, yeah.
It was basically an extension of Mike Angelo and the Idols. At first place, I thought Mike Angelo and the Idols was a silly name, and we'd outgrown it. In the second place, Mike Angelo and the Idols was as much comedy as it was music. Too much, actually. Mm-hmm. In the third place, I had to get drunk to do it.
Oh, boy.
So I thought it was time to get sober and play music instead of so much comedy for a change, you know?
Yeah.
But we lost our fans because they were into the comedy.
Yeah, and you're not drinking, so you probably cut out a whole population there, right?
Yeah.
Have a beer, Mike, you know?
No, couldn't do it anymore. And so we lost a lot of that following. All the momentum we had built up as Mike Angelo and the Idols, we lost when I changed the name of the group and got serious. But we did manage to pick up. I put the group together 2 or 3 times under 2 or 3 different sets of personnel, And we did manage to get a booking agent out of Fernandina, Randy Scott. So we did a lot of weddings and stuff like that. We played, the Landing a lot.
Yeah.
We opened for Rain Sanction.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I heard this story.
I was really glad that we didn't have to follow them.
Yeah, yeah.
They were incredible.
Yeah, they were a great band. I actually took a class at FCCJ from their mother. Talking about college, you sort of did a whole career shift. And I remember you called me in like 2001 or 2002, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to try to do this writing thing. And you're like, I wanted to interview you. And I found the article, which is funny. And but you totally now are 5 published books, all kinds of stuff, articles.
Scholarly journals,
And you got your degree from...
I got 2 degrees. I went back to UF and I got a master's in mass communications. Mm-hmm. And then I started my PhD program there, and I wasn't happy with UF, so I went to England.
Right.
Signed up for the media history.
University of Reading.
University of Reading under Jonathan Bignell. And he was great, man. He helped me choose my dissertation, and it got published.
Wow, that's amazing. And you lived in England for 2 years?
No, you don't have to.
You did it remotely?
You just write the chapters, turn them in by email. They give you the notes, you make the changes, and you have to meet there once a year.
Okay.
So I made several trips to England. I really enjoyed it too. I wandered around England, wandered around London at 4:00 in the morning in the snow.
Speaking of your writing career, your last 2 books were Jacksonville and the Roots of Southern Rock.
Right.
And Guitar Greats of Jacksonville?
Yes.
Is that the name, official
Exactly,
name of the
right.
book?
Mm-hmm. You've done your homework.
I've read both of these.
Oh, good.
And
you want me to autograph them for you?
I just can call you up and say hi. I don't, But I love these books. But I remember when you did the first one about Southern Rock, you were doing some social media things and some, I don't know, list servers or whatever, or forums, I guess they're called. And you got a lot of criticism because you were saying you traced the roots not originally in and everybody's like,
no, Jacksonville's
livid,
not the birthplace of Southern Rock.
And that's what
it's
I
the
wanted.
motherlode.
Yeah.
Probably more Southern Rock bands came out here than anywhere else, but people were doing Southern Rock before they were doing in Jacksonville. They were doing it in Memphis. They were doing it in Los Angeles. The literal Allman Brothers, Dwayne and Greg, were doing Southern Rock in Los Angeles in '67.
Right. And
They recorded "It's Not My Cross to Bear" in Los Angeles in '67. They did an album of Southern Rock in Nashville in '66. So you can't say Jacksonville is the birthplace of Southern Rock. In the first place, music doesn't get born, does it?
Yeah, it's always influenced by something else.
Right.
So we
It's
invented the blues, which you can't say that.
It's a slow, gradual evolution. You can't pinpoint the birth of something.
Right. And I think people want to own that as part of Jacksonville's history. But I really appreciated your diligent research. I mean, you traced all the way back to, who is it, Graham Parsons, like moving from here to California. And you talked about all the Southern California stuff. But what do you think that argument stems from? Is you think people want to have ownership over it here in or Jacksonville wants to be on the map for something?
Jacksonville is on the map. I mean, Jacksonville's contributed maybe 100 major label acts since the 1920s, since Blind Blake.
Right.
So Jacksonville is on the map. I think people have an inferiority complex about Jacksonville, and they want to overstate the case. They want to oversell it. Jacksonville, you could even say it was the home of Southern Rock, maybe, or the motherlode, but it's not the birthplace.
Right. And now, was there anything in your research that surprised you? Was there anything you're like, whoa,
yeah,
I didn't know that?
lot.
Give me a few examples of those surprises when you're writing these last couple of books.
The main thing was how hard these guys worked. Mm-hmm. Good God Almighty, the Second Coming. Two of which went, to become founding members of the Allman Brothers, Dickie Betts and Barry Oakley. Mm-hmm. Barry Oakley's idea was they wanted to play underground music, You ever heard that expression? You're too young for that.
No, well, they called alternative underground for a while.
Yeah, They wanted to play underground music, but Dickie didn't want to do it. He needed to make a living. He had a wife and a baby on the way. And they were playing 6 nights a week at the Scene over where I live now, over near Roosevelt Square. And but Barry kept saying, I want to play original music, man. And Dickie kept resisting. And Barry said, well, you know, our audience is out there. He says, but they're just not old enough to get into clubs. And they weren't. I mean, I was a fan of the Second Comings. I would go see them, you know, at Ravine Gardens or at Woodstock Youth Center, and I'll come back to the Woodstock Youth Center, which is really important. But Barry said, the audience is out there. We've got to go to them. So Barry's like, well, how do we do that? Well, I know, we'll play in the parks for free, because there was a BN tradition in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. I don't know if, I think there were bands playing. There was a BN in San Francisco, was all kind of things. It was political rally and comedy and music and all kind of stuff, culture. So Barry came up with the idea of doing a BN at Willow Branch Park in Riverside, and people showed up.
Wow.
But the point is, they were playing 6 nights a week and doing the BN on their day off. They were working 7 days a week. So they were just the hardest working band in the South, pretty much. And then, you know, I think Ronnie Van Zant got that. Well, Ronnie Van Zant got it from his dad, who was Dutch, you know. And I don't know if you know about the Dutch work ethic, but it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And like, look at Springsteen, right?
Yeah.
He's Dutch, or half Dutch, half Italian. But in fact, there's a lot of similarities between Ronnie Van Zant and Bruce Springsteen. So anyway, Ronnie Van Zant felt that, you know, maybe his band didn't have as much talent as, say, the Second Coming, but we could outwork the competition. So, I mean, that was his philosophy. That was his modus operandi. We would outwork the competition, and they rehearsed 7 days a week, 20, you know.
And what was that place called? The Hell House or
Yes.
something? And there was no air conditioning and mosquitoes and everything else. And
and gators.
And they would just practice like incessantly. And going back to the
10 hours a
Springsteen
day.
thing, yeah, you have to get good at some point playing that. You know, that many hours a day. I mean, that's some commitment right there. It's almost like they willed it, almost.
So the thing that made, you know, and people say, well, what's so great about what makes Jacksonville so great? It's the work ethic, I think, mostly.
Yeah. And do you think that's tied to, like, the Navy transient people?
Somewhat. There are an awful lot of Navy brats in the music business in Jacksonville. Jeff Carlisi, Hoyt Axton, Leon Wilkeson, Billy Powell, myself. There's a lot of Navy brats in the Dave Lubeck.
Yep.
A lot of Navy brats in the Jacksonville music scene. In fact, I'm thinking about writing a book about it.
Just about the Navy
Just
connection.
the Navy brats in the Jacksonville music scene.
Yeah. I used to work on Lubeck's Corvette at my dad's muffler shop on the west side. He had a collection of old vets, and he'd always bring one in and weld some mufflers on it.
Then he wound up putting racing stripes on Corvettes himself.
Really?
Yeah.
Like doing pinstriping?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. After he quit Hatchet.
Great band, you know. But
I couldn't get past Danny Joe Brown's voice either.
Yeah, that was sort of the precursor to the grunge voice,
you know. $500 to get your head blown off.
That's
it will.
And I think a lot of people think Jacksonville, like, they don't think about Black Kids or Rain Sanction. They think about that.
Yes.
You know. And I wonder if that hurts us. Now, my wife had an idea. The Jacksonville Landing, they did. They tore it down. And you played there. My band used to play there.
I used to see you there.
Yeah. But they, she thought it'd be a great idea to refurb it and turn it into a Southern rock museum with a brewery and food, Southern.
It's a vacant lot now.
Yeah, it's flat. But what are your ideas about something like that? You think that could be a success? It seems like this town has a lot of... I mean, you could rattle off all the Southern rock bands and not even finish the list. I mean, there's so
at least
many.
a dozen.
Yeah, known ones.
Yeah.
Internationally.
Yeah, right.
So you think
major label acts.
Right.
Yeah.
You think you could morph that into something like, you know, like Seattle has the music museum.
Yeah, it could be done. But it's not the first person. She's not the first person to think of that.
Oh, I'm sure not. But she was just like, wouldn't that be a great spot for it? Like near the stadium? If you
Judy
came
Van
to town?
Zandt kind of tried to do something like that with Freebird Cafe. Only it was the wrong location, I think. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a group trying to put together a Jacksonville area music museum. Mm-hmm. And I was a consultant for the Jacksonville Historical Society about that project, that very project. But I recommended that they do a music museum of all Jacksonville musicians because there's so many R&B acts and soul acts and funk and jazz and black acts from Jacksonville that, you know, it's kind of to just focus on Southern rock is kind of a slap in the face to all the other genres.
Well, I think another idea would be to branch out Southern Music Museum, and you could include Athens and everything else. You know, that might be something too, you know, like as far as just bands from the South.
I'm hearing that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is thinking about opening satellite locations and maybe one in Jacksonville.
And would you jump on that as a consultant? I bet you would.
Of course I would.
Let's talk about the future of Michael Ray FitzGerald. What do you got? A new book in the works, or what? You're still writing music and play. Are you not performing though per se? Are you?
No, I'm not performing anymore. Who the hell wants to see a 71-year-old man up on stage trying to act sexy?
I do. I still think you're sexy, Mike.
Down boy.
No, but still writing music?
Yeah, I can't help it.
Yeah.
It just pops out of me from time to time. I'll get a splurge of writing. I mean, I don't know if you have this problem. You probably do. I have melodies going around my head 20 hours a day. Mm-hmm. I can't get away from them. I mean, it's almost like demons haunting me. And I think it's ghosts of jingles from my childhood.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I don't know where they come from. I've had it since I was a little kid, and I have these melodies running around in my head, and they won't stop. So every once in a while, I'll actually sit down and listen to them and write it out, you know, get out a guitar and follow the melodies in my head and see where they go.
Right.
Sometimes they turn out pretty good. Sometimes I'm just stealing something that I already know and I didn't know him. So like George Harrison did with My Sweet Lord.
My Sweet Lord, famous first big case, right?
Yeah, and of course he'd been told, you know that.
Well, he kind of admitted it, right? He's like, yeah, I heard it in the morning probably and wrote a song.
Yeah. I mean, we all do that too.
Sure.
So McCartney was even worried that he had stolen yesterday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if I've stealing them or what. But I gotta exercise these demons every once in a while and get them out of my head. I don't know why.
Well, and writing
therapeutic.
Yeah. Well, as an artist, you know, and writing wise, do you have another book in the pipe?
I'm thinking about doing Navy Brats of the Jacksonville music scene, but that's going to be a really tiny audience for that.
Well, you know.
But it needs to it needs to be written.
Well, and historically, it's like, you know, I have 200 subscribers on my YouTube channel. It's like nothing, you know. You can find a cabbage cooking channel that has more than this, but
I've got 50 something.
It's like I do it for the almost the historical thing, and I'm sure that's sort of your bent.
You know, Mike Campbell grew up in Jacksonville, and Ron Blair too. Well, Ron Blair's father was stationed there for a little while, but Mike Campbell lived here
from Tom Petty. Right?
Yeah, he lived here for a decade at least, maybe more. I have a friend Mike Bell went to school with him at Ribault, and he's not a Navy brat, though. He was an Air Force brat. And I can't figure out for the life of me where his father was stationed in Jacksonville or why.
Yeah. Mike Campbell, great guitarist. And,
he really is.
Huge
There's
component.
a whole chapter about him in my
there
my
you
book.
Go. And then Jack's Docks. Is that the...
Doc Jacks.
Doc Jacks,
Yeah.
okay. So this is a new thing you're doing now. Let's talk some about that.
Okay, great. It's a nonprofit founded by me and several other people. Sharon Cobb, screenwriter, Donna Goddard. She's done nonprofit work before and marketing, and she was in radio, and several other people. And it's we're basically producing a TV series about famous musicians from Jacksonville, and there's a lot of them. In fact, we're struggling to get the list down to something manageable.
Wow, you're going to do like 16 episodes, or do you have any plans?
We're only
yet?
going to do 5. It's going to cost about $30,000 per episode.
Wow.
So we're working on raising the money now. We are getting some cooperation from the mayor's office on this.
That's great.
From Tracy Polson at the mayor's office, and she's setting us up with some donors, and also from Downtown Investment Authority, Ina Mazzini and her boss Lori Boyer, and our real quarterback has been Todd Rubin at the City Film and Television office. So these people are all helping us try to find some money for this project. And when we do, look out. But seriously, there are so many of them. I did a piece for Jacksonville Business Journal, and there were 100 major label acts through the years.
Can you talk about any of the people that might be featured, or you want to not say anything yet?
No, I'm happy to talk about them. I did want to stress the criteria we're having to use so we can pare it down to something manageable, because we were only doing 5 episodes, so we can only put maybe 10 per episode. Mm-hmm. So we have to get rid of a bunch of people. So I can't put Campbell in there because he never did a gig in Jacksonville.
Wow. So it's very Jacksonville focused.
It's got to be people who started their careers in Jacksonville. Graham Parsons did start his career in Jacksonville. Mm-hmm. He was on radio here at the city-owned station WJAX-AM. Mm-hmm. Rita Coolidge did not start a career in Jacksonville. She started a career in Memphis.
Right, even though she was born here.
No, she wasn't even born here. She only went to school here for 2 years.
All right, so people are trying to own these people that didn't really lay down anything in Jacksonville.
Pat Boone left here when he was 6 months old. We're not going to do Pat Boone.
No.
We're not going to do anybody who... But you know what? The Allman Brothers did start his career here in Jacksonville because Dwayne Allman actually lived here for a few months before he moved to Muscle Shoals, and he kept coming back here, and he formed the band in Jacksonville.
So they're in there.
They got to be in there.
And then Derek Trucks, obviously, by extension. Well, he still lives here, doesn't he?
Here. Yeah, he still lives. He was born here. He still lives here.
That's amazing.
Yeah, he is amazing. So that's our criteria. They've got to have started no matter how long they lived here, they've got to have started their career here in Jacksonville.
And what is your goal for this? Television or
TV series?
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're negotiating with a couple of local stations about getting it on.
All right. Well, I'll be there for sure. Anything else you want to discuss, Mike, to wrap it up?
Yeah, I wanted to tell you about the Woodstock Youth Center.
Okay. This is when you mentioned this and we never got back to it.
Yeah, my dad bought me my first guitar in '69. I was 16 years old. And I think he thought it was a nice hobby. It would keep me off the streets. So I was 15, living in the trailer. 16, living in the trailer park in Orange Park. Somebody said, "Hey, there's a kid around the way who plays guitar." It turned out it was Paul Glass. He was in a group called Marshmallow Steam Shovel. No, Doomsday Refreshment Committee with Jeff Carlisi.
Oh, okay.
And so I went and knocked on Paul's door. Never saw him before in my life. Just went over there and just knocked on the door. Had the guitar case in my hand. Glass comes to the door, his long, stringy hair, you know. And he's looking kind of greasy. And he's like, "What do you want?" I said, "Look what I got." And I hold up the guitar case. He goes, "Okay, bring it in." So I bring it in, and he takes it out of the case, and he's playing, he's fondling, and he looks at me and goes, "You don't deserve this guitar."
He said that to your face.
He didn't have the best manners in the world, right?
Right.
So I started going to his house. He showed me how to play the blues on guitar, though. He showed me the trick.
But you kept going back, even though he insulted you initially.
I took it as a compliment.
Sure.
At least I picked the right guitar.
Right, yeah.
At least I had good, maybe I couldn't play, but I had good taste.
Right, you had good gear.
Good judgment. So I kept going back over his house. He taught me the secret of playing lead guitar was Ernie Ball 008 strings.
Okay,
you could pull them.
Super extra light, whatever they call them.
Yeah, super extra slinky.
Right, that was the Ernie Ball catchphrase. The slinky, everything was a version of slinky.
Yeah. So that was the trick. So that unlocked the door for me. So I was sitting up every night learning Eric Clapton solos. And I could actually play the solo from Badge, note for note, like the record.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't that great improviser, but I could learn a solo. So Glass part of my guitar instruction was the guitar lore, and he said, you gotta go see Dickie Betts. We gotta go see Dickie Betts. Dickie Betts is the man.
Mm-hmm.
Now he did mention Duane Allman, but Duane lived in Daytona. Dickie Betts lived here in Jacksonville. So we started going to see, on the back of Paul's Honda 90, we started going to Palatka and everywhere to see The Second Coming, which was Dickie's band, and just gaze at Dickie. He was our guitar god. Mm-hmm. He was the guitar god for this area. And so one time we hitchhiked to Woodstock from Orange Park, up Blanding Boulevard, up Cassett, to Beaver Street, to Woodstock Youth Center, which is a rough part of town, man. I mean, I don't know. You didn't live here then.
No.
It was redneck city.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had long hair, and it was about the length mine is now, okay? If you had long hair, that was an invitation. I mean, it was a declaration of war on society.
Wow.
It wasn't just an anti-war statement. It was a declaration of war in general. And so if you had long hair and you were walking down Beaver Street, and a muscle car pulled up, you needed to kind of like
duck out.
Yeah. So
but at the youth center, were there like-minded long hairs all went there?
Yeah. So we got there, and it was full of long hairs.
Nice.
And including Dickie and Barry. And then there was another long hair on stage with long strawberry hair down in his face, with just his nose poking out, looking like Cousin It, and he's looking down at his guitar and playing and wouldn't let Dickie play. And so Paul and I got irate and we're like heckling Duane Allman.
Stop playing.
Let Dickie play. We paid money to hear Dickie.
Were they both playing slide?
Who is this guy? Dickie can play circles. No, he wasn't even playing slide. Who is this guy? Dickie can play circles around him. And he could, actually. And Duane Allman admitted Dickie could play circles around him.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff people think that was on the records think that it was Duane Allman was Dickie Betts.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, Duane Allman got invited to join Derek and the Dominoes, and he declined, saying that Eric Clapton ain't got nothing on Dickie Betts.
Wow. That's a compliment.
That's a big old compliment. So we were heckling Duane Allman first time I saw him. We didn't.
That is a hilarious story.
We knew who he was, but we didn't recognize him.
Yeah. Wow. Great stuff, Mike.
Thanks, bud.
Well, we appreciate you coming in today, Mike. Joe Popp from the Popp Rock Shop podcast, the Poppcast. Give it up again for Mike Ray FitzGerald, and we'll see you again soon, Mike. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me on.
Popp Rock Shop. We make cool stuff.